Well, that's the familiar tune you hear in the background that introduces our program that we broadcast every single Wednesday evening here from Stockholm in Sweden. My name is Theophilus van Rensburg-Linster. This is Wednesday, the 26th of March, and you are very, very welcome in this space. I am not alone, and it's a really hearty and wonderful place to be in, to not be alone. I am joined this evening by Terry Martin. Terry, good evening to you, my brother.
Good evening, Theo. Good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
We haven't had a chat together for a long while. Well, that's not entirely true. Not in the public.
We nearly ruined the friendship 30 seconds ago, but we're still here. We're still here.
Lunch bars have a way of overcoming all the hostilities in life. If you don't know what a lunch bar is, you're going to have to visit South African Terence Martin, who is the king of Cadbury. We'll explain to you exactly what a lunch bar is. Be that as it may, thank you so very much for taking your time and spending that with us. This evening is dedicated to, number one, promoting the vocational training in agriculture that we work with in South Africa. And when I say we, I mean Learning Academy worldwide. And the second aspect that we are focusing on this evening is to tackle a very specific idea, and it's the idea of the value that competition and contest bring to the learning environment. We started with that last week when we had the brilliant young man Gareth Millar in our midst. And he was talking with Sven and I. And by the way, while we are talking about Gareth Millar, I promised him that I would say something this evening. And I would like to say it right now. Happy birthday, Gareth. Terry, you had a little chat with Gareth as well. Remember at school? The South African teacher, yeah? So Gareth is celebrating his birthday this evening.
Is he 21 or 22?
No, he's 17, I think, for the third time. No, but Gareth, we really appreciated the contribution you made last week, and when you talked with us together through this whole concept and this whole idea, it was very encouraging and very refreshing. I've asked Terry to come on this evening because it was important for me to get him to give his feedback, since he was on the ground, provide his feedback when young people, 4 groups of them from 2 different regions in South Africa, competed at what is called a hackathon. The idea there was that in a very, very condensed time, they would solve a specific problem within agriculture, largely focused on food security. And they would then bring that whole concept and that whole idea to this 2-day hackathon, and the first day they would prepare for it, and then the second day they would pitch it to an international panel of judges. Terence Martin, representing Learning Academy Worldwide, which is a non-profit organization working to strengthen vocational training in agriculture, was there. And so he represents a sort of first-hand approach this evening, or first-hand account of what transpired during those wonderful, wonderful hours. Terry, sort of a lot to think through when we think of these young people, right? But what are some of the first impressions that dawned on you when you connected with them over those 2 days?
Wow, with all 24 of them, they were seething with excitement. If I say seething, they couldn't wait to land there and pull out all the stops, because you obviously had been priming the pumps prior to that event. And they were more than ready to hit the ground running. I got to know them as they landed, as they got off their bus, and got into their dormitories and sorting each other out, who goes with whom. The buddies wanted to hang together.
Yes.
Some enemies were together. So
Now,
it was a lot of heat at that point. But just the excitement to let's get on. We really have a big couple of days together. So the excitement was infectious and contagious.
Now, you were alluding to the fact that they had to travel. And just for those of you who are listening in, I want to just bring up this map here so that you can see. And so what Terence is referring to is as you would see, there's a little map, Terry, that's pointing out the three locations where Learning Academy Worldwide has its sort of satellite campuses, if you wish. And the one is in George, and that's actually where the hackathon took place. And just to the northeast of George, about 130, 40 kilometers, is a little place called Harlem. And that's really where everything started as it relates to the practical implementation of our work within vocational training in agriculture. But now further north, and this is like northwest, about 1,000 kilometers, that's Concordia. And as you see it on the map there, it's just south of the northern border to Namibia, the northern South African border that is to Namibia. And so, yes, Terry, so they landed there and they were fatigued. What else did you notice?
Well, other than just the pure adrenaline, I think they
Mm,
were more on the fumes of the adrenaline than anything else, than
yes,
adrenaline itself. Uh, but the very first night, they were sitting up until about 12 o'clock. Some of them probably finished around about 1 o'clock
right,
because they were working on their presentations. They were broken up into four groups,
right.
and some groups were a little smaller than others, but they were to work together and do a presentation, which we would love to just share on the air once we get a little further into the program.
Yeah.
But other than the excitement, just the way they connected with the people that I hadn't met before.
Mm,
I hadn't met this group before.
mm.
I hadn't met Marco,
Yeah, Marcus, one of the teachers. Yeah.
yeah, Pedro,
Mm,
Engelbrecht. It's
mm.
a very French name, right? Pedro, they
Yes.
say Spanish.
He would fit in well
Well,
there. Yeah.
got to know him. We
Mm,
roomed together with Leon, who was another teacher who
yeah.
had come down with the Concordia crowd. And the second thing that struck me was just the intensity of the relationships, positive intensity,
Mm,
getting into each other's faces.
mm,
What's the password? We need to get onto our computers
mm.
because we need to do a digital presentation.
And get onto the Wi-Fi, especially.
That's right. Well, with Wi-Fi, and you had this back and forth,
Mm,
almost secretive, you know,
yes.
working together because they couldn't let, in a sense, other teams know what they were doing.
Right.
Um, but that's what struck me was the relational factor, relationality.
Mm. Well, that's very interesting, and I think that it does echo what we were talking about last week, and we're talking about the when we were celebrating, and we had we showed the viewers, Terry, the winners and the other team members, and it was quite clear from both individuals that were in the studio here with us, that is Sven Isaacson and Gareth Millar, that they felt that it's in those relationships where a great deal of the sharpening of the mind, the improvement of your sort of skills of solving problems together, and of course now you're learning from each other as well, and so you acquire some very useful knowledge. So very, very important point you're mentioning there. Now there was one winner. And this team is from Concordia. This is in the northern part. So there were four teams, two from Concordia, and there were two from the Southern Cape and George. And but that one of the teams from Concordia won. Do you want to say something about that moment? Just the moment that Alfio Valentini is the head of the Seed for Africa project, when he announced the winners. Do you recall what
Oh,
that
I
was
recall
like?
that moment because
Mm,
I think Alcio really played on, intensifying the cruelty of the moment. And it built to quite a crescendo. And I think that's where you have the best competition brings out the best in people, also brings out the worst in some,
sure.
because there were some strong words before
Mm,
why a particular team had to win. Well, those were guys on the inside of a particular team. They needed to win.
mm,
They were going to wipe the floor. But what was so beautiful was, they a lot of them just broke down. I don't think they had ever experienced a moment like that. And
mm,
they weren't just kids. I mean, a lot of them are in high school, some out of school
yeah.
for a number of years already. But to see just how they huddled, and just some of them just wept bitterly,
Oh yeah, I noticed that as well.
um,
Yeah.
which was such a moment. We
Mm,
take things like that for granted in the cities.
mm,
With there's high activity, high access to almost anything and everything.
mm.
And then you have kids who come from probably some of the driest terrain in the country,
Indeed, that's where they're
and
from.
smallest, just a small rural city of about 8,000 people,
Mm,
and dry as dust. And yet, years where this agriculture process is, taking root,
mm,
and to see them being overwhelmed with emotion was quite a moment,
mm.
which we captured on video, incidentally.
Yeah, and you interviewed them, of course, then subsequent or to the event, and gained
Yes,
some
that
further
was fun.
gain some
That was
further
fun.
insight. I'm just showing on the screen here a little bit of the aridity and the dryness, and this is a group of young people that are playing soccer. Well, they are trained to play soccer in a rather arid and dry on a field, and that's what they had, and they did their best there. So Terry is alluding to Concordia, a place in the northern part of South Africa, actually in one of the provinces called the Northern Cape, and the winning team showed a great deal of emotion, of course, understandably, having won this particular competition. You can read a lot more about that competition by going to seed4africa.eu. And 4 is not FOR, but it's the number 4, seed4africa.eu. And we were able to gain some insight there. And that particular project's goal was to invest in the improvement of the quality of vocational training teachers. And Learning Academy Worldwide, the South African nonprofit, was awarded part of that grant in a consortia involving two additional African countries, Kenya and Benin, and three European partners based in Italy, Belgium, and in Spain. And over these last 2 years of the project, our teachers actually traveled to Spain to do some job shadowing, gain some insights into some of the innovative technological solutions within agriculture, and gained also a great deal of experience as they expanded their own network. On that, Terry, you were alluding just a little bit before we talk about this issue of resilience and teamwork and confidence within the young people. Um, you and I have often said that these teachers, these leaders that are needing to be an example and demonstrate. Good. We may have lost you there for just a brief second. And we wanted to just talk a little bit about the role and the responsibility that teachers play. Terry, what you, when we talk about Concordia, for instance, where Leon and Marco, the two teachers, one older and one younger teachers, were working with these young people. What did you observe from their interaction that points to some unique attributes in their relationship that contribute to what one can describe as the success of these young people?
Well, I think the way the two of them related and relate to each other was so key. It is an Afrikaans word that was so opvallend.
Mm,
It caught your attention. It almost smacked you in the face,
mm,
because here you had mentor and mentee,
mm,
trainer and trainee, but you had it in the context of what I would call reciprocal opening. They were open to each other.
mm,
It wasn't just a one-way street. And so as I watched how the two of them related, and then in turn how the two related to the team, was quite phenomenal to watch, because the team was mirroring the kind of spirit,
mm,
the kind of betweenness. That's what we call it. What happens between 2 points or objects or people. The in-betweenness, the betweenness that was going on between A and B,
mm,
and then between A, B, and C, as
mm,
both related to the team. And so the team took on that dimension, very consultative.
Mm,
Not a blurring of the skill sets of each one,
mm,
where it becomes they become non-entities, because you had strong leaders within the group, but there was a consultative element. What do you think? How should we do this?
mm.
How do we go about that? No, 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 but you haven't taken this into consideration. And you had a group dynamic that was absolutely fantastic. I don't have a word to describe it. The
Ah,
kind of thing you wish for wherever you are. A
mm,
group dynamic that is interactive,
mm,
facilitated by skilled teachers
mm.
who navigate with great skill and always willing to listen to the learner. Well, what did you say? Say that again and say that to the group. Did the group hear this? Are you
Wow.
guys listening? So, what was mirrored by the two teachers, what was going on between the two,
Mm,
was the virus, the disease was being caught. The virus was spreading on the team.
mm.
And that's what I thought was just so great. You
That,
can't you can't buy that
right, and
anyway.
that's a wonderful observation there, because it does point out to the power that their relationship as an older teacher and a younger teacher mean for each other, and that they created and facilitated or strengthened this ecosystem. Let's take on this little issue that we talked about. Uh, that points to the kind of elements within competition. Now, you and I were saying earlier, well, let me ask you, you don't like the concept of the winner takes it all, right?
There's a place for that
Right.
in the early stages of nurture.
Mm,
But as individuals and as teams develop in terms of their transformation,
mm,
as they transform and become more and more mature in their relationships, in their skill sets, in their understanding of what's going on within nature,
mm,
the nature of agriculture, uh, I think things shift very uniquely from there on out. Uh, as long as, in my mind, you don't make that competition the prime driver and prime mover.
right.
Because I think there are other ways of relating very, very effectively while not poo pooing the idea of competition. Oh, no, we don't do that.
Yeah.
I think it's a maturity thing, and to take note of that, because competitiveness is a very rivalrous kind of thing.
Mm.
Uh,
If
you
we
know, yeah.
if we look at the value that the competition bring to the learning experience, is that, would you consider that to be a valid kind of question when we say, is it important for us to think about what value does competition bring to the learning environment? Is that a valuable question to ask?
I think it is. It becomes an extrinsic motivator,
Hmm.
right? Let's talk about the donkey and the carrot. And I'm not suggesting these kids are a bunch of donkeys, but there's a carrot. There's something that incentivization does,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? But that is the prime way that you are moving forward? I think there are some other valid skills that are being overlooked.
Hmm.
How do I function within a non-rivalrous way in terms of bringing out the best in others and seeing the best come out of me?
Hmm.
Because rivalry is a crazy thing. It means I got it, nobody else has got it, nobody else will get it. I eat it and it's gone. That's what consumerism is all about.
Hmm.
And that makes for another wonderful discussion where we can go back and forth. But to understand that these things have their place.
Hmm.
And I think we don't want to be multiplying the errors of what has gone on before us.
Hmm.
We want to teach young people to understand that anti-rivalrous postures are very helpful things, because if we continuously fighting and at each other's throats, we're not really bringing out the best in each other. I think we bring out the worst in each other
That is true.
far too often.
Yeah.
You know.
And I'm thinking now of if there's a, well, since there is a good side to the what one can maybe describe, and would this be fair to say, healthy competition? If that's the case, would this issue of, I picked this one out from a list that we've gathered as to the kind of elements that make for good competition, when we ask our question, the question, what value does it bring? And building confidence and resilience. What is your take on that, Terry? Is that a, would that be an important emphasis to make in at least attempting to answer the question, what value does competition bring to the learning
I
environment?
think it's a place to start. It's not the only place to start, but
Sure.
it's a place to start because you want to see developing in these young people
Mm,
uh, not just resilience. Resilience is, probably number two on this ladder of moving from certainty to uncertainty, for example.
mm,
Um, the lowest rung would be, robust, just the thing. It goes for a while and it breaks, and it comes up again and it goes for a while and it breaks. Resilience has this idea of bouncing back,
mm,
after a lot longer period. And then one up from that will be anti fragility,
mm,
developing an anti fragility. The danger with anti fragility is you develop an unbreakable, almost static spirit and way of going at life.
mm.
And I think there are constantly better ways of doing things. Confidence is important, resilience is important, but don't just end there.
Yeah, sure. In the reality that these young people are living in, and you talk about the rural settings where you, and then of course not to even mention, but you have to consider past, what rural people compared to the city dweller. It's always been explained as, I grew up in a part of my life, a substantial part in the rural areas, and we were called Plaas Yappies, and this was never meant as a compliment.
Was an pejorative term for
Yeah.
sure.
So it's, when I think, and I want to sort of bring the slide up again here, is just building confidence. When these young people, of course, face a set of challenges, not only rural but also arid and dry. Um, those challenges, and the obstacles, they are not to be discarded, right, Terry? I'm sometimes concerned that we throw the obstacles and the challenges into the fray rather easily, and almost saying that, well, you know, this is, these are the matters that really have to be held in front of us if we want to look at the can I call it, the extent to which confidence and resilience have been built. Is that a fair comment to make?
I think it's a very fair comment to make, but what I would say is that we have not explored that avenue as deeply as we should
Mm,
and as deeply as we could, because we always view obstacles like this is the end. Oh, good night. Versus viewing obstacles as beginning points
mm,
versus end points. And I
mm,
think that is a helpful way to go at it because, there's something about pain in our lives that pain is the portal. And we've talked a lot about this, you and I. Pain becomes the portal that unlocks the richness of growing a deeper capacity to experience reality in deeper and more meaningful ways.
it's a good thing we have that
And the
recorded.
portal is pain.
Yeah.
Now, my wife
Mm.
stopped me this evening and said, "Why? But why pain?" The one is, I don't know, but I just know it's the singular thing. Here's what I would say: it's the singular thing that centers you.
Mm,
Pain is a way of centering you. Either you fall off the bus, you lose perspective, you lose the traces, or it gets you to focus very sharply on what is happening in your world, inside of you, and in your world. And for these kids, to teach them that there are certain things in their life that they must never view as surprises.
Sure.
Pain is part of the deal. These kids made sacrifices.
Ah, they did indeed. Yeah.
Especially the Concordia.
Yeah. They
Long
have.
trip there and back.
Mm-mm.
To be in such an intense competitive environment, and boy, the very next day, be back on the bus in the heat of the day, back home. And so that's where this sacrifice issue comes in.
Absolutely.
Just the pain issue, at great cost to health and their own lives,
I think
it's not a small thing for them to have gotten down so far.
What Terry Martin is alluding here to is related to these young people from Concordia in the northern part of South Africa that made this long journey down south to George in the Southern Cape to compete in this competition. It's a hackathon. This particular hackathon, they shone not only in participating, but one of the teams that came from there actually won, and their reward is to compete in an international competition between the 3rd and the 6th of July in Italy, in Spello, just 200 kilometers north, almost true north from the city of Rome. And so it's true that pain has a way of highlighting just what is possible when in a context of a affirming and caring community, they can become growth points and they don't have to be stumbling blocks, so to speak. We have 2 minutes here before we want to close down. Terry, it's been very, very useful, but please stick around because I need to share some important information. We got a couple of dates that are coming up here, and we wanted to spend this time also sharing this kind of information to you, largely because of Learning Academy Worldwide's presence. So up on the screen, you have a Deep Tech in CEA and Crop Science conference in Bangkok in Thailand that's happening from the 6th of May to the 8th. And Learning Academy Worldwide is going to be there. And we are, in this broadcast, offering an open invitation to anyone. This is particularly and only for South Africans. If you register and you let us know on this portal or in another way you can contact us that you have applied, you will qualify for between 10 and 15% of a discount. If you plan to go, let us know. So that's from the 6th to the 8th of May. And there's a great deal of rather innovative technological solutions embedded in here. So we're going to be there as well. So then on the 10th to the 12th of June, there is, Terry, you're going to be in Amsterdam. At
Amsterdam.
And Green Tech.
I've been there before. Yeah,
you've been there before.
I have not been to Amsterdam.
Okay, well,
love to see the tulips.
Yes. So there's there will be tulips for sure because ornamentals as they call them. This is part of agriculture, and so Green Tech is described as the heart of the horticulture sector, and so we're going to be there. We have a booth every single year. And we would like to stay at the cutting edge of technology in order for us to sharpen and shape the nature of our training programs for our young people in rural South Africa as part of the Vocational Training and Agriculture Program. More information, of course, you can find on our website, www.learningacademyworldwide.org.za, and you're more than welcome to contact us if you so need to. Terry, it was really good to have you this evening. Thank you so very, very much for all these wonderful insights.
Well, this was fun. This was fun.
It was, yeah. Thank you so very, very much. And for those of you who have been listening in this evening, we really, really appreciate the time that you take to spend with us. We really appreciate that. After all, we are working in education and for the upliftment of these young people. This comes at a cost all the time. If you want to find a way to support what we're doing, right on the screen now, there is a quick response code. Smart people just abbreviate it, call it QR code. Or they're willing to scan that code and find a way to support what we're doing for the benefit of young people that need it the most. My name is Theophilus van Rensburg-Linster, between 2 points, one in the north, Stockholm, and one in the south, manned by Terence Martin, some 11,000 kilometers away. We were very honored to have you with us. Terry, thank you so very, very much, my brother, for spending your valuable time with us here. Listeners, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Theo.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.